let's talk about cameras, lighting, and rendering. So we already know how to view or look through our camera by pressing this button here, or we press the 0 key on the numpad on our keyboard to look through our camera. Of course, or we go to the very long way by going up here, but we won't be doing that. You already know how to look through the camera. Now, a couple more things about the camera. Let's say I'm going to rotate around this scene here. Let's say you have your model here, which in this case is our cube, and you wanted to view it from this angle here. How would you position the camera here to view the object? Well, one way is by selecting the camera and using your move tool, or grabbing it by pressing G and trying to position it over here and rotating it to allow you to view the object. As you can see, that's a bit tedious and you might not get the exact position that you want. So how would we view the object from this angle if we wanted it from here? Well, there's a shortcut key for that. So when you are in a position where you want the camera to view your object from, just hold on the Control, Alt, and the 0 key on your numpad, and the camera will actually move itself to that particular position wherever you are. Let me rotate around. So for example, again, if we wanted to view, let's say we wanted to view or position our camera here, we just press Control, Alt, and 0 on our numpad, and the camera would just position itself there. So that's a very easy way to move your camera wherever you want it to go. But you can still left click on the camera, turn on your move tool and move it and rotate it and do all that good stuff to move it into position. Now there are a bunch of options here for the camera. So if you should select the camera over here, and let me actually position my camera here by pressing Control, Alt, and 0. And let's take a look at the different options. Before we get there though, you can move the camera when you're looking through it by selecting the outline here, and you could just press G to grab and move. You can also press R to rotate, and of course, but you can't really scale the camera lens like from here. If you press S, you're actually scaling the camera object itself. So let me come out of that and press S and show you, but that does nothing for what you're seeing. To do that, you would have to change the focal length, which is this, like so. All right, left clicking and dragging. All right, so this allows you to change the focal length. We can switch between the types: perspective, orthographic, and panoramic. And we have a bunch of different options here. We won't be going into all of these at this point, but in future videos, we will be going there. So that's the basics for the camera. Now, in terms of lighting, to see our lights affecting our object within the scene, we'll have to go to the render view. So if I click this option here, we're in the render view and we can see what the light is doing. Now, the light is affecting only this side here, but if you should left click it and move it, you can see it will affect the side that you move it to, like so. Now, let's take a look at the properties for the lights. So here, and if you have anything else selected in the properties panel, just select this icon here to select the light properties. So we have 4 different light options within Blender, which is point, sun, spot, and area. By default, we're on the point light, and you can change the color of the lamp, like so. You can increase the intensity by typing in a value here. So let me type in maybe 40,000, which is ridiculous, but you can see that the intensity has increased. You can alternatively left click and drag left or right to increase or decrease the value. You can turn down the diffuse, and you can see how that affects the object there. You can turn down the specular, and you can turn on and off the volume, and you can increase the radius of the light. But typically, when you're working with lights, you would play around with your settings until you get something that you want. Every light by default has a shadow, and that allows our objects to cast shadows. So let me actually go to add mesh and add a plane here, scale, so that you can see the shadow of the object there, right? So if I turn off shadows, there would be no shadows cast. So that's how you turn on and off shadows for the lights. We can switch, again, we can switch between lights by just left clicking on the light that we want. The sunlight is the strongest, and we as you can see, we have the same settings here that we can change. We have a spotlight, and the spotlight basically puts a spotlight on your object. So there you go. So if you wanted to, maybe you're creating a character that is singing on a stage and you wanted to add a spotlight effect, you could use this light to aid you in that. And of course, you have some different options here, such as size. You can increase the size. You can blend to make that smoother or more harsh, right? And you can turn on and off the shadow. But yeah, you can explore those options on your own time. And the last is we have the area light, which basically illuminates an entire area. So that's pretty much it for the lights. You can go ahead and just play around with it to see how the light affects your object. And you can add multiple lights to the scene. We can actually duplicate this by pressing Shift and D. Just move that. So you can duplicate that light, add it into a different position, rotate it like so, maybe bring it down, and change its color. Change this to like a green. And you can see that both lights are affecting the object there. Of course, these two lights are the same brightness, so you could turn down the brightness for one and leave the other, right? And as you can see, both lights are casting a shadow. So in this case, you would make one the main light, and the main light you'd leave the shadow on, and then all the other lights you could just turn off the shadow. And that's depending on the effect that you want. But that's how you would use lights in your scene. Now, let's say we completed our scene, we have lit it, and this is the way that we want it, and we want to render this as an image. The first thing that we need to do is set up our camera, or the last thing that we need to do is set up our camera. And we already know how to do that, so let me just position this here, and I'm going to press Ctrl, Alt, and 0 to move it here. And I can also grab the camera by selecting it and just position it, maybe, you know, just alter it a bit, rotate like so. All right, so let's say that's what I wanted. To render this image, you'd go to render, render image, and you'd see what that looks like. Okay, to save this, you just go to image, save or save as, go to wherever you want to save, give it a name, and click on save. And that's how you would save your image. All right, so that's it for this video, and I will see you in the next one.